This is going to be a story of an artist who didn't know what they wanted to be when they grew up. Hello, hi, that artist is me. I'm Chance, and I'm an independent comic artist and illustrator. So let's just get this ball rolling, shall we? Or maybe I guess I should put in some context, because this is going to be my first video in a very, very long time. I've been wanting to make videos that are kind of me drawing in the background and then me just kind of like talking and sharing stories about, I don't know, things, or rambling and ranting about my feelings or something, I don't know. But hopefully you enjoy it. I personally enjoy this kind of content to just sit back and listen to while I draw or work or whatever. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get going with the mess, shall we? My art story really begins with The Lion King. No, I don't know. But I did really love that movie when I was very little, as well as all the other Disney films, and I eventually got into anime and stuff like that, so Little Chance was very much into like the animation scene in particular. So I ended up wanting to go to the art high school that's in my community here. I actually applied to the IB program school as well, and I ended up choosing the art high school instead. I got into both, so I had the option of being the smart kid or the art kid, and I chose to be the art kid instead. So but yeah, I mainly wanted to go to this art school, this art high school, because I wanted to get into their digital animation program. That was what it was called. Even though we did more than just digital quote-unquote animation, like we never really got into 3D stuff. Anyways, that's not here nor there, right? I wanted to go to this school to see if I would enjoy being an animator. So that's what I did. But to my dismay, they put me in a visual arts class as well. For good reason. At the time I didn't necessarily know or appreciate why they did it, but now I know that they were trying to get my skills good enough to be able to apply to colleges in order to get into the animation programs, right? That was the purpose, that was the point. I didn't know that at the time, but I still grit and bared it, and I ended up actually falling more in love with that class than I did my animation class, which should be a hint, by the way. That's like a major hint for later on in the story. So in my start of junior year, I actually stopped taking those the animation courses altogether to focus on the visual art stuff instead. That eventually led to like an AP kind of like situation and whatever, but I was like, I really like doing this, and also I need to do this so that I can get into colleges, right? So I think, I told myself it was for the college, but it was just ultimately more fun for me, because at that time, like, I really wasn't like focusing what I should have been focusing on for animation, which is like your anatomy fundamentals, like sense of motion and movement, rhythm and stuff like that. Nope, I was painting. It was me painting with oil paints. That's what I did, and that was my AP course medium. So, but anyways, in these art high schools, one thing, I think most of them do this, is they take you to the art colleges to tour the campuses, to kind of like get you thinking about it, and they also get your portfolio, you get your portfolio reviewed, and yeah, you dream of the day you can go to art school, basically, feed you the Kool-Aid and all that fun stuff. But so, I ended up going to a few of them, and I fell in love with the idea of going to art school. I was like, okay, great. Yep, this is perfect. I'm going to go and I'm going to be an animator. I'm going to go to the animator courses. I'm going to learn how to do 3D animation, and it'll be great. It'll be great. All the while, little old me is drawing, my OCs and my like little comics that I have here and there, right, for myself, not really understanding that there's probably more to animation than just the animating itself, right? Right, young Chance? I didn't know that at the time. I thought it was just animation. I wasn't aware for whatever reason. I don't know why I never learned about it. I was never aware of like viz dev or concept art or storyboarding or yeah, just like things like that, right? I didn't really understand that that could be a path, right? So young Chance is dead set on getting into art school as an animator. Well, long story short, Chance applies and does not have the portfolio necessary to get in on that regard. So, and the one school that I really wanted to go to was Ringling, and then I think SCAD was my second one. I didn't get into Ringling as to be like an animator. They suggested that I try to do the motion design route or an illustration route, but I didn't really want that. I was like, no, I want to be an animator. So I think SCAD, I think I probably got into SCAD's animation program. I can't necessarily remember everything. But while that happened, obviously art school's expensive. My family couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to take the loans out because I don't have credit, and nobody was willing to co-sign my loans. So I was kind of stuck. So I ended up going to a community college where I really, how do I say this? I really took off on the art side. But what I was trying to do at the community college was to start my career as like an art teacher, an art educator, because that's something tangible, right? Like you're going to school, you need something tangible to be able to do after you're done, after you've went through all the courses, after you paid all the dollars that you needed to do to college. There has to be an end game, right? Right? So that's what I did. But along the way, I found a art professor mentor who is amazing. He basically taught me the fundamentals and foundations of the human anatomy and learning to draw that better, and it really started my love of drawing, right? Of art in that way, of figuring out how to do it better, basically. So, and all the while I'm doing that, I'm also creating a webcomic on the side on Smack Jeeves. If you remember Smack Jeeves, if you were a part of that little escapade, I don't know, put like a thumbs up or something down in the comment section below. I don't know, but it didn't last long, right? I was a little bit too busy, and I wasn't necessarily as disciplined as I am now. So aside from the art side of my life, I was also taking those art education classes, and you know, they were okay. It wasn't like they were sparsed out in between my art classes, because mind you, I was also attempting to try and do these art classes so I could transfer to an art school later. Spoiler alert, it doesn't happen. But that was my train of thought. So yes, so that doesn't happen, but in the process, like I'm also starting to learn about, because of the internet, I'm starting to research more. As I'm researching these art schools to try and get in secretly, I'm also learning that there's other things than just like animation, right? There's like, you know, the concept art, the viz dev, whatever, depending on what side of the world you're on. You know, storyboarding, all that stuff. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I should be a concept designer. It would kind of be cool to like work for video games and stuff like that. And I really like, you know, drawing and painting. I got into digital stuff as well. I got a tablet and started doing that. So, you know, in the meantime, I'm supposed to be like, oh, I'm going to be an art teacher. But, you know, I have this backup plan in my mind, right? I'm like, all right, just in case this doesn't work out, I got this. Well, I ended up going to university to finish out my art educator degree. And the first semester was okay. It was, you know, it was good. I had to like intern and stuff like that at schools and stuff like that when we were doing like, you know, art educator stuff, blah, blah, blah. It was fine. But the printmaking class that I had was really the bright star of that time, right, for me. So when second semester hit and I didn't have any art classes, I think I may have had a photography class, which obviously that's like an art form as well, but it didn't sing to me. I just didn't care for it. And so with that, plus these art education courses and like busy work courses that I couldn't stand, I was done, right? My brain was over it. I couldn't take it anymore. So I in essence dropped out. I just stopped going. I stopped showing up to the classes. Instead, I would go to the library on campus where I would just sit down and draw, like just like digital art, like fundamentals, and like trying to learn how to be a concept artist and designer and illustrator and all this stuff. Like that's what I was doing. Or if I didn't go there, I was somewhere else drawing, right, on my tablet. So my little bamboo Wacom tablet. And so eventually I officially withdrew and dropped out. And then I was kind of in like this weird limbo stage of, well, geez, you know, if I'm not doing that, then what am I going to do? I can't go to art school. I don't have enough money. At this point, I was already set, like, I can't go to a traditional art school. That's just not going to work for me, and it's not going to happen. So I gotta get my like head out of my butt, basically. So, all this while, I'm also working a part-time job at a newspaper, basically doing factory work, putting like inserts into the newspaper and stuff like that. I at least had that, I suppose. But I eventually, in that same town where the community college and the university was a sequential artist workshop, and that's actually the name. Look it up, go to their website, take classes if you're into sequential art or comics. They're amazing people. But I found them. It was like their second year of doing the workshop. It's a year-long workshop, and it changed my art life so dramatically. Like, I saw it. I was getting back into like doing comics and stuff like that on the side as well. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just do this, right? Because this is the closest thing I'm probably going to get to like an art school, quote unquote. And it was super affordable. It took like the rest of my student loans, which I didn't have much of. I think it was only like $1,000, maybe $1,500, maybe dollars for the whole year. And honestly, probably some of the best education that I've ever gotten. And it's because they actually, not only did they teach like sequential stuff, right, but they taught like some like story elements and stuff like that, but they taught like how to be an artist. There was one instructor, mentor specifically, that I just really like clicked with, like connected with. Like I don't know, I just feel like I understood her and like how she taught and like her perspective on art. And I don't know, she like the way she talked about art was the way that I felt about art. Like it's hard to explain. Maybe one day I'll try to explain it better, but that's not important, right? I basically learned, you know, that, you know, taste level is a thing, and learning and growing that as a skill is a thing. And, you know, in order to draw, like, in order to improve, like how your like stuff looks, like you have to develop that, you know, figuring out who your favorite artists and stuff were, and like looking back into art history, not for a grade, but for the love of it, the love and the beauty, and then figuring out how that influences what you're doing, and how you can use what those artists in the past have learned to accelerate yourself or to improve yourself. So you would think then I would go the comics route, or heck, like maybe even like be more focused on like more illustration route. You would think. But no, Chance's brain has other ideas. So after that workshop, that year-long workshop, still working at the newspaper place, I also discovered that a video game startup was opening up in my hometown. So I was like, oh, cool. Let's apply to that. So I did. And they were actually looking for somebody who was versed in, I guess, like sequential art and stuff like that. And so they hired me. Granted, I was like an intern with no pay for 2 weeks, but I did get money eventually. So there's that, I guess. They did pay me weekly after those 2 weeks. But yeah, so I started doing like sequential kind of like I don't know, scenes for the little game they were, like, little mobile game they were creating. I also got to animate. I was able to do some like little 2D animations for like little sprite animations and stuff like that. And how many times can I say animation? Yeah, so that was good while it lasted, because like a few months later the company went under, and so a whole bunch of us got laid off, and that was that. So me working at the newspaper part-time, second shift, and then eventually third shift, trying to get more hours and more money, because, you know, you have to have money to survive. My bank account was hitting 0. I eventually started to sweat a little bit. So I eventually found a job listing for a graphic design position, again in my hometown, which is where I'm living now, and where I was at the time as well. And went in for that interview, and I got the job that day, and quit the newspaper place, and yeah. I started working there, and you know, I'm still working there. And the beginning was very, 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 very good. I got to learn so much more about Photoshop, which I was already pretty well versed in at the time, but I still learned more. But I really learned more about Illustrator, which honestly is a very good program to learn, and maybe I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, it was fun, and it was very, very, very good for like the first few years. All the while I was still trying, for whatever reason, to be a concept artist, even though I thought I was doing concept art, but in reality I was actually doing illustration. I was doing fantasy illustration with my OCs. I was digital painting. I was digital drawing. Not necessarily concept art. I never actually, I don't think, made it that there. I thought I was. I definitely thought I was. But in the meantime, I did a comics convention in my local area, and my wife and I, we did it. She's my creative partner and writer, and we sold out of our comic that we were selling at that time. And you would think that would be a hint, but no, it wasn't. In fact, I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that. I still want to be a concept artist, because I still have to make it, right? I still have to get into one of these big companies so that I can prove to myself that I made it, that I am a good artist. I don't know why. I don't know why I felt like that, but I did. So all the while, still doing art and stuff like that, and I was like, you know what? Let's go to GDC, the Game Developers Conference, because I want to go and see if I can get a job as a video game concept artist. So that's what we did. My wife is amazing, and she goes on all these crazy rides that I have us go on. And we went there with a friend. We met a lot of people. It was a very fun trip. And I think on one of the last days, I got my portfolio reviewed. And the guy looks through it and he goes, you know, your work is decent. And this guy works, I don't know if he still does, but at least at the time he worked for Riot Games, right? Super cool. Awesome. I can't wait. He goes, you know, your work is pretty decent, but you're not doing concept art. I'm like, what do you mean? And he was like, well, as somebody who's like going to be hiring people and stuff like that, like we have to see that you are going to be doing concept art. And so what I recommend is drawing, like getting like what did he say? I think he said, get Hanzo and put different like armor on him, right? Because like skins right now are the whole thing, right? You gotta be able to do like design a whole bunch of skins, or like design like different armor or whatever for like a fantasy game or whatever, if that's the direction that you want to go in. But like you have to be doing like different iterations of different things. And I was like, okay, cool. Thank you so much for your time. And I walked out of there feeling like death. Like the guy had complimented my work. He said my work was decent, right? And my wife said that I walked out and she thought like I had gotten like reamed, that like I was destroyed and obliterated, because my face was just pale as a ghost. And I get to her out of like my like walk of like, it wasn't really a walk of shame, but my walk of like, oh God. And I get to her and I go, I don't want to be a concept artist. I don't want to do this. And it's that moment is like a forever like changing day in my life situation, because of course I didn't want to be a concept artist. I like iterating over and over and over things is freaking hard, and I just don't, it's not necessarily, I mean, it is hard, like doing art is hard, but it's just not something that I wanted to do, right? Like, and it took that moment for me to understand it, which, hey, sometimes you just need to hear it. I'd watched plenty of YouTube videos saying, hey, if you don't want to design and iterate and this, like you don't want to be a concept designer. You don't want to be a concept artist. And what's also funny about that is the job I was working at, though nowhere near does like concept designer, nowhere near, but it's that same like produce mindset, which ultimately leads to my like, I was already at that point, I was already kind of like getting bored and tired of the job that I had been working. But that happens, the revelation happens, and I'm like, okay, I need to be, oh goodness, I have a cat. Come here. It's Latte. Latte is wanting my attention. But anyways, I was like, I need to work for myself, I think. Because, or, you know, I can't really remember like what I thought. I just knew that I had to come up with something, because everything that I thought I knew is now gone. I didn't want to work in animation. I didn't want to work in concept stuff. I potentially thought about going into storyboarding, right, at the time. I was like, after that, I was like, okay, maybe storyboarding will be a thing that I do, because it's like comics, and, you know, it's like, I already have like the designs and stuff like that already made. But it also happening with the job that I was working, and I was getting like frustrated and tired with working for somebody else. I was climbing up the corporate ladder. It was kind of just getting all too much. And then I finally discovered that it is possible to make a run at being an independent artist. So I started researching how I could make that possible. And in the meantime, again, like I said, I climbed up my company's ladder. I ended up becoming the assistant art director. I was in charge of our artists, and, you know, trying to keep them happy, and while also still doing art, or still doing, I say art, it's production art, right? It's just putting other people's logos onto a product. Like, that's all it is. And so it got to a point where I eventually learned, like, oh, well, I could be doing conventions, and I just need to get my social media presence up a little bit more. And maybe these OCs that I created for a Dungeons and Dragons game, which I fell in love with. D&D was another like great part of my life. And maybe if I did something with that, and I don't know, maybe I can make something work. Maybe I can do this because I don't want to work for anybody. Like all of these years, I was taught, you know, go to school, go to college, get a job. Like I never really thought it was, you know, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I never really thought it was possible to be able to work for yourself, even though, you know, businesses exist, right? It is a thing. You know, I did a convention at one point and we sold out of comics. Like, you know, the brain works in mysterious ways, I feel like. And, you know, it got to the point where I was just like, you know, I can't be living somebody else's dream either. I need to start making moves here, and I have to stop stalling, and I have to just do it now. Like, I was telling myself that my artwork is never, in my head, my artwork is never going to be good enough for me, right? Like, I'm always going to want to improve it. I can, like, at that point, like, I had started liking my artwork, right? But like, I could definitely see, I can always see where I can improve it. And I finally just had to tell myself, you're gonna have to just jump and just see. It's not up to you to determine if your stuff is good or not. Let's just take a leap of faith and see what happens. So in 2020, I was like, let's do it. We're gonna make a conventions run. And then 2020 happened. And I was like, okay, you know what? In 2021, we'll see what happens. And I got into Dragon Con, but before that, I did a last minute con at, I think it was Tampa Bay Comic Con, and I got smoked. Like, it was bad. I barely made table back. Luckily, I had friends there that helped me out. Shout out to Dustin and Sang. Honestly, thank you guys so much. Because my table was bad, and then they just helped me out, and I think they improved my table so much that people decided they wanted to buy from me the last day, and I barely, like, I was like $5 past table, if that. I don't even, maybe I didn't even make table. I don't know. I can't remember. It doesn't matter, because I was like, how am I gonna do that and then go to Dragon Con? Well, I sucked it up. I fixed my table and made profit at Dragon Con in 2021. And then from there, 2022, I think I did some cons here and there, but it wasn't that many. I didn't get accepted back into Dragon Con, but 2023 was the year that I really made a run for it. I think the end of 2022, I was kind of over like doing the job that I was doing, you know, being in charge of people and working for other people, but I couldn't just make the leap, right? Like, I have bills to pay. I'm responsible for too much, right? And my wife is amazing and she's great, and she's, you know, she's the main, like, executive mommy right now, I guess, if you want to say. I'll probably cut that, but she's the main breadwinner right now, and, you know, keeping us afloat when on the months that I don't have any cons or any markets, like local markets. So, you know, I couldn't just jump, right? But I had a con that did exceptionally well, where I like doubled what I had made the year prior, and I was like, this is it. Like, I'm to the point where my mental health is corroding working this 9-to-5 job that I am. I'll just move to part-time. We'll go part-time, and then we'll see what 2023 brings. And let me tell you, a pretty good decision, because it gave me more time to focus on my art, get everything ready for 2023, and the conventions that we did. We did C2E2, ASIN. I loved ACON. We did MetroCon. Oh my gosh, we did more than that, but MomoCon. but my brain isn't, isn't at full capacity right now. I've been talking for over 30 minutes, but you get it. You get the drill. And we ended up making so much money at those shows that it was my supplemental income. It was like the other half of my income that I was missing by going part-time. So yeah, so long story short, you never know where you're going to end up in life. And do I wish that I would have known that I could have been working towards being an independent artist much faster? Yeah, I really wish I would have. I would be a lot farther than I am now. But, you know, sometimes life takes us on this ride, and now I have this, like, crazy dumb story to share with you guys. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. So now I'm working on a webcomic called Cycles. I'm currently finishing up my buffer on it, and we'll be releasing that soon. So get in on the Patreon if you want to see exclusive behind the scenes. Maybe I got some spicy stuff material. I got a spicy tier. And yeah, we'll see. I've been wanting to go in like a more story driven like angle for a bit now. So we'll see. It's a little bit of a transition, because if you guys have been to my table at cons, and if you've been to my old website, then you know that there is a story and all that fun stuff. But I don't know. I'm nervous because I'm unsure of if I'm nervous that I want you guys to appreciate the story stuff as well as the art side. So if you're interested in that, look at the Patreon or keep an eye out on my socials to see when the first pages will be going up. It's going to be hosted on its own website, and it's going to be on Webtoons and maybe Tapas as well. So yeah. Anyways, it's been super fun talking with you guys, and I don't know, if you have any like video ideas for future videos, let me know. I have other ones that I have in mind that we'll see. But until then, like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.